like to introduce you to a great literary favourite of mine, Samuel Pepys, who from the years 1660 to 1669 kept a diary which has become one of the greatest diaries ever written and a total joy to historians who of course can use it for all the detail about life in Restoration England. Pepys was a real character. He was also an appalling womanizer, and I'd like to read you a little extract from the diary written on Lord's Day when Pepys goes off to church. Now, at that time, churches didn't have lots of seats in them. People stood to hear the sermon, so Pepys was able to move around within the church, and this is what he writes in his diary. I walked towards Whitehall, but being weary, turned into St. Dunstan's church, where I hear an able sermon of the minister of the place, and stood by a pretty modest maid, whom I did labour to take by the hand and the body, but she would not, but got further and further from me, and at last I could perceive her to take pins out of her pocket to prick me if I should touch her again, which seeing I did forbear, and was glad I did espy her design. And then I fell to gaze on another pretty maid, in a pew close to me, and she on me, and I did go to take her by the hand, which she suffered a little, and then withdrew. So the sermon ended, and the church broke up, and my amours ended also. That's very typical of Samuel Pepys, attending church in London. Pepys's life was truly remarkable. He was born in 1633, the son of a tailor and an illiterate washerwoman. He managed to win a scholarship to attend St. Paul's School in London and did very well at school. He then went on to Cambridge University. Now, we don't know a lot about these early years in Pepys's life, but there's a lovely report in one of the books at the Cambridge College that he attended to record that Pepys came home one night scandalously overseen in drink. So like many a student before and since, Pepys went off on a pub crawl. Now, he had to use what contacts he had to try and find work, and Pepys was eventually able to get a job with the Navy, the administration of the English Navy. He rose incredibly high in that profession. In fact, he's often regarded as the founder of the administration of the modern English Navy. He loved his job at the Navy, and a lot of his diary talks about the work that he did, visiting rope makers, sail makers, all sorts of people connected with the provisioning of the Navy ships. In 1658, something very important happened in Pepys's life. He was operated on for the removal of bladder stones, a terribly dangerous business, no anaesthetic whatsoever. He made his will the night before the operation, and he was lucky enough to survive it. For the rest of his life, on that day of the operation, he had a special anniversary dinner to celebrate surviving this amazing operation that of course was incredibly painful. In 1655, Pepys married a 14-year-old girl called Elizabeth St. Michel. It was a very tumultuous marriage, and a lot of the diary records the fights that they had, her jealousies, his jealousies, the outings they took together, their new purchases, and their movement from one home to the next, always slightly better as Pepys became richer and moved up in the world. So the marriage is a truly fascinating part of the diary and also very funny. But as I mentioned, Pepys was not faithful to his wife, and in the diary he records his various sexual adventures, or sometimes misadventures, in a wonderful variety of different foreign words. So he thought this might protect him from anyone working out what he was up to, but of course everyone now knows exactly how often Pepys misbehaved. In the diary he records some of the great events of that era: the return of King Charles II and his coronation, the hanging of those people responsible for the execution of King Charles I. He talks about the plague and, of course, his terrible fears that he too might catch the plague, and, of course, also the fire of London. And Pepys was there in the midst of all of it, and all of these wonderful details are recorded in his diary. Now, in 1669, he was worried that he was losing his eyesight, He was having a lot of problems with his eyes, and he finally gave up writing the diary because he was terrified that he was going blind. And the last entry in the diary is an uncharacteristically sad one, because Pepys was normally a very cheerful, enthusiastic man, but there he is thinking that he's going to lose his sight. He didn't, but he never returned to keeping that very personal diary. Now, he left the diary amongst his belongings to a nephew, and from there all of his books went to Magdalen College in Cambridge. And for a long time the diary sat there, and people didn't really know that it was there. But in 1818, the diary of one of Pepys's friends and contemporaries, John Evelyn, was published, and that caused a lot of public interest. And the master of the library at Magdalen said, look, hang on, we've got the diary of Pepys here. Maybe we need to transcribe it, because Pepys's diary was written in a shorthand code. They did know the form of shorthand, and so they were able to go through and transcribe the whole diary from code. Now, in 1825, they started to publish it, but they left out all the naughty bits because it was felt in the Victorian era that one didn't need to know about Pepys's sexual behaviour. So it would take a long time before the entire diary was actually published. And it was only in 1899 that 90% of the diary was published, still leaving out some of those very naughty bits of Pepys's behaviour. But eventually the entire diary did come out, and now, of course, we can read the unexpurgated Samuel Pepys. It is a truly wonderful book. You can read it in an abridged form, you can listen to Kenneth Branagh reading it on audiobook, or you can read the whole diary. And it truly is a joy to get inside the mind of this curious, intelligent, funny, and sometimes very naughty man who was so representative of his era in Restoration England. So I hope that you will discover the diary for yourselves and enter the truly wonderful world of Samuel Pepys.